Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session of The Tragedy of Mariam, The Fair Maid of Jewry by Elizabeth Cary. It's a play from the early 17th century, dating somewhere between 1602 1609. Precise dating is difficult and opinions do vary on that. I say this is a first look. That's in a sense a bit of a lie. We've actually done quite a lot of this on the podcast. If you want to listen to me pontificating about this play at great length, go to the podcast, links in the show notes, and you will be able to listen to all the spoilers episodes, which are the starting point for a full cast audio adaptation that I haven't finished editing yet, primarily because of plague. Hopefully next year that will actually be released in possibly multiple versions, because I have so much I could say about this play. In fact, even with the many hours of me pontificating about this play, I haven't even touched on so many things and important issues, which hopefully other people in this room will pick out for me. And I will endeavour to not impose my thoughts and opinions on their reactions to the play. Reading today, there's so many parts with this relatively small room. Reading Mariam, Graphina, Antipater, and Sileus man is Rachael.
I dropped the ball on that one totally. Hi, Rachael, actor on the East Coast.
Reading Alexandra, Ferraris and Doris is...
Hi, Lynn Freitas, teacher on the West Coast of the United States.
Reading Constabarus and Ananell is...
Alan Scott in the UK.
Reading Salome and Babus' first son is...
Elizabeth Amisu, also in the UK.
And reading Sileus, Chorus, and Babus' second son is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm reporting to you from the Void.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will read what few stage directions there are and keep everything moving forward. We've got quite a lot of text to get through. Now, the printing of this does include an argument, which we're not going to read today, mainly because the argument actually makes you feel more confused than if you hadn't read it before you read the play. But I think it's fair to say that there is an interesting familial dynamic going on in this play, and we're going to find out now whether reading it reasonably cold, you get an idea what the backstory is. So that's the task. You're going to find out whether you're confused or not confused about who everyone is and what's going on. Without further ado, we're going to start Act 1, Scene 1, enter Mariam and the opening soliloquy.
How oft have I with public voice run on to censure Rome's last hero for deceit, because he wept when Pompey's life was gone, yet when he lived, he thought his name too great. But now I do recant, and, Roman lord, excuse too rash a judgment of woman. My sex pleads pardon then afford. Mistaking is with us but too common. Now do I find, by self-experience taught, one object yields both grief and joy. You wept indeed when on his worth you thought, but joyed that slaughter did your foe destroy. So at his death your eyes true drops did rain, whom dead you did not wish alive again. When Herod lived, that now is done to death, oft have I wished that I from him were free, oft have I wished that he might lose his breath, oft have I wished his carcass dead to see. Then rage and scorn had put my love to flight, that love which once on him was firmly set. Hate hid his true affection from my sight, and kept my heart from paying him his debt. And blame me not, for Herod's jealousy had power, even constancy itself to change. For he, by barring me from liberty, to shun my ranging, taught me first to range. But yet too chaste a scholar was my heart to learn to love another than my lord. To leave his love, my lesson's former part, I quickly learned, the other I abhorred. But now his death to memory doth call the tender love that he to Mariam bare, and mine to him. This makes those rivers fall, which by another thought unmoistened are. For Aristobulus, the lowliest youth that ever did an angel shape appear, the cruel Herod was not moved to ruth. And why grieves Mariam Herod's death to hear? Why joy I not the tongue no more shall speak that yielded forth my brother's latest doom? Both youth and beauty might thy fury break, and both in him did ill befit a tomb. And, worthy grandsire, ill did he requite his high ascent, alone by thee procured, except he murdered thee to free the sprite which still he thought on earth too long immured. How happy was it that so heinous mind was moved to pity my distressed estate. Might Herod's life a trusty servant find, my death to his had been unseparate. These thoughts have power, his death to make me bear, nay more, to wish the news may firmly hold, yet cannot this repulse some failing tear, that will against my will some grief unfold. And more I owe him for his love to me, the deepest love that ever yet was seen. Yet had I rather much a milkmaid be, than be the monarch of Judea's queen. It was for naught but love he wished his end might to my death but the vaunt courier prove. But I had rather still be foe than friend to him that saves for hate and kills for love. Hard-hearted Mariam, at thy discontent what floods of tears have drenched his manly face? How canst thou then so faintly now lament thy truest lover's death, a death's disgrace? Aye, now, mine eyes, you do begin to right the wrongs of your admirer and my lord. Long since you should have put your smiles to flight. Ill doth a widowed eye with joy accord. Why, now methinks the love I bare him then, when virgin freedom left me unrestrained, doth to my heart begin to creep again. My passion now is far from being feigned, but tears, fly back and hide you in your banks. You must not be to Alexandra seen, for if my moan be spied, but little thanks shall Mariam have from that incensed queen.
Before Alexandra enters, I just want to ask the question, do we know where we are? What Mariam's going on there? Anyone with it? Anyone confused from that speech? Thoughts in the room? What's going on? What's with Mariam? Does Mariam know?
No idea. I mean, her boyfriend's dead.
Yeah, that's not far off. Okay, I think I'll just throw in a bit of exposition. So she's married to Herod. Herod is reportedly dead. Herod murdered her father. Or was it grandfather? I can't remember. Anyway, bit murdery on the family side of things. And she's also married to him. And Mariam is a little confused about feelings here. Because isn't sure whether to feel sad that he might be dead, and that's a bit confusing. So having emotions that she wasn't expecting to have.
So she's heard her husband is dead, but her husband murdered her father or grandfather.
Yeah, I should remember these things because I should know this play backwards, but I forget off the top of my head. I think it's grandfather, but anyway, I will know in a minute because someone will tell us at great length. Rachael.
Yeah, I mean, there is so much. I think because this was a little hard for me to follow even reading it, that because it seems to be like she is going back and forth, and maybe it's that there were feelings that came up because she was married to the guy, even though there was she has all these reasons to hate him for what he's done to her family. Or it could be like, now that he's dead because he killed all her family, really, what is she left with, and what does she do in a society where she has to rely on somebody who's on a man who's related to her for any sort of financial stability or access to power.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yes, and just go to show what happens when I go into this cold of something I thought I knew everything about. So Aristobulus, who got mentioned earlier, was the lowliest youth is Mariam's brother, who also has been ended by Herod. So family got beef with Herod, I think is fair to say. Yeah, not necessarily fully explicated, but lots of potentially good stuff, because there's so many reversals going on with Mariam, going from where to go. There's a lot you can do with this speech. Any other thoughts before we get more into it? Because as I say, I was sort of wanting to make sure everyone was on the same page before we move forward. Elizabeth?
I was a little bit confused, but it's all been cleared up now.
Yeah. It's just a question in a dramatic context of making sure that's clear to the audience. I feel a prologue needs to be added. Eric?
I was just going to say that the language is actually quite interesting, because it alternates between sort of very flowery and very realistic, and kind of, I don't know, like tears fly back and hide you in your banks, and then like, you must not to Alexandra be seen, and like it's sort of, I don't know, it just flows very nicely.
Yeah, and it's setting up. I mean, what's nice there about that line there, it must not to Alexandra be to Alexandra's scene, is of course it's setting up the relationship between where she is with Alexandra there. It's basically setting up Alexandra's reaction to the tears that Mariam must have been crying. So, let's, depending on which edition you're looking at, this could be labelled as Act 1, Scene 2, but we don't bother because it's just tedious. Enter Alexandra.
What means these tears? My Mariam doth mistake. The news we heard did tell the tyrant's end. What, weepest thou for thy brother's murderer's sake? Will ever white a tear for Herod spend? My curse pursue his breathless trunk and spirit, base Edomite, the damned Esau's heir. Must he, ere Jacob's child, the crown inherit? Must he, vile wretch, be set in David's chair? No, David's soul within the bosom placed of our forefather Abram was ashamed to see his seat with such a toad disgraced, the seat that hath by Judah's race been famed. Thou fatal enemy to royal blood, did not the murder of my boy suffice to stop thy cruel mouth that gaping stood? Must thou dim the mild Hyrcanus' eyes? My gracious father, whose too ready hand did lift this Idumean from the earth, and he, ungrateful caitiff, did withstand wretch, the man that did in him most friendly trust. What kingdom's right could cruel Herod claim? Was he not Esau's issue, heir of hell? Then what succession can he have but shame? Did not his ancestor his birthright sell? Oh yes, he doth from Edom's name derive his cruel nature, which with blood is fed, that made him me of sire and son deprive. He ever thirsts for blood, and blood is red. Weepest thou because his love to thee was bent, and readest thou love in crimson characters? Slew he thy friends to work thy heart's content? No, hate may justly call that action hers. He gave the sacred priesthood for thy sake to Aristobulus, yet doomed him dead. Before his back they ephod warm could make, and ere the mitre settled on his head, oh, had he given my boy no less than right, the double oil should to his forehead bring a double honor, shining doubly bright. His birth anointed him both priest and king, and say, my father and my son he slew to royalize by right your prince-born breath. Was love the cause? Can Mariam deem it true that Mariam gave commandment for her death? I know by fits he showed some signs of love, and yet not love, but raging lunacy, and this his hate to thee may justly prove that sure he hates Hyrcanus' family. Who knows if he, unconstant wavering lord, his love to Doris had renewed again, and that he might his bed to her afford, perchance he wished that Mariam might be slain.
Doris, alas, Her time of love was past. Those coals were raked in embers long ago, in Mariam's love, and she was now disgraced, nor did I glory in her overthrow. He not a whit his firstborn son esteemed, because as well as his, he was not mine. My children only for his own he deemed, these boys that did descend from royal line, these did he style his heirs to David's throne. My Alexander, if he live, shall sit in the majestic seat of Solomon. To will it so, did Herod think it fit.
Why, who can claim from Alexander's brood that gold-adorned lion-guarded chair? Was Alexander not of David's blood, and was not Mariam Alexander's heir? What more than right could Herod then bestow? And who will think, except for more than right, he did not raise them? But they were not low, but born to wear the crown in his despite. Then send those tears away that are not sent to thee by reason, but by passion's power. Thine eyes to cheer, thy cheeks to smiles be bent, and entertain with joy this happy hour. Felicity, if when she comes, she finds a mourning habit and a cheerless look, will think she is not welcome to thy mind, and so perchance her lodging will not brook. Oh, keep her whilst thou hast her. If she go, she will not easily return again. Full many a year I have endured in woe, yet still have sued her presence to obtain. And did not I to her as presents send a table that best art did beautify, picture of two to whom heaven did best feature lend, to woo her love by winning Antony? For when a prince's favor we do crave, we first their minions' love do seek to win. So I, that sought felicity to have, did with her minion Antony begin. With double sleight I sought to captivate the warlike lover, but I did not right. For if my gift was borne but half the rate, the Roman had been overtaken quite. But now he fared like a hungry guest, or to some plenteous festival is gone. Now this, now that, he deems to eat were best. Such choice doth make him let them all alone. The boy's large forehead first did fairest seem, that glanced his eye upon my Mariam's cheek, and that without comparison did deem what was in either, but he most did like. And thus distracted, either's beauty might torn, within the other's excellence was drowned. Too much delight did bear him from delight, for either's love the other's did confound. Where, if thy portraiture had only gone, his life from Herod, Antony had taken, he would have loved thee and thee alone, and left the brown Egyptian clean forsaken, and Cleopatra then to seek had been so firm a lover of her waned face. And thus great Antonius' fall we have not seen, by her that fled to have him hold the chase. Then Mariam in a Roman's chariot set, in place of Cleopatra might have shown. A mart of beauties in her visage met, and part in this, that they were all her own.
Not to be empress of aspiring Rome, would Mariam like to Cleopatra live. With purest body will I press my tomb, and wish no favors Anthony could give.
Let us retire us, that we may resolve how to deal in this reserved state, reversed state. Great are the affairs that we must now revolve, and great affairs must not be taken late.
But before they can go, Salome will enter. But I think we should just pick apart some of Alexandra's words. Alexandra's not keen on Herod. I think it's fair to say, and the invective, because it's all about who's in charge, who has the right to the throne, who has the bloodline to the throne, which is why it gets a bit problematic with what Alexandra says. Though it's primarily what the character is saying. And as it goes on, Alexandra's stuff about who she should Mariam should have married and the complicated family relationships goes just really quite weird. Thoughts from the room before I go into that? Alan?
Given that so far we've only seen female characters, was this actually written for public performance, or was it written as a sort of closet drama for domestic production?
The general consensus is that it's probably designed for a private consumption, but there are people who push back against that. Basically, the answer is we don't know. But yes, it is true that there are a decent number of solid female parts, but not more than a professional company could deal with. It's when you start going above 4 that you might start going, well, this might be more a boys' company thing or not a professional thing. But yeah. But an excellent question. Other thoughts in the room about what's going on here, Lynn?
Well, okay, Alexandra's got a lot of anger.
Yeah.
Granted that. But I also kind of feel like maybe, we'll see, that Mariam has a little Stockholm syndrome. This guy murders her father and brother, marries her. They have a couple of children, and Mariam's like, well, he threw over his first wife. He doesn't love her anymore. He loved me, and he wants to make my children heirs instead of his older children heirs. That proves he loves me. I don't know, Mariam. You sure about that?
Yeah. That's a good question that the play will go into. And we do bring up Doris, of course, the first wife of Herod. So we get those coming in. And of course, we get more detail about what happened to Aristobulus, who was basically given a promotion and then killed. Mm-hmm. It was like, hi, you can be chief of the, you can be high priest, and death. So nice promotion then death. Eric?
I find it interesting that they used like Cleopatra, another strong sort of female symbol of power, as sort of like they both use Cleopatra, but like in different ways. Sort of, Alexandra's going, oh yes, you could be Cleopatra, being so loved by Antony and so on and so forth, and then Mariam goes like sort of, I'd rather die, like Cleopatra.
Yeah, and the whole love match thing that Alexandra goes on about with Mark Antony is severely weird because it's all about a portrait that basically Alexandra offered both her children to Antony's interest. And Antony saw pictures of both, because basically it assumes that Mark Antony is a bit bisexual, that he sees both pictures and goes, I can't choose between them, Mariam or her brother, and so doesn't choose either of them. And it's like Alexandra's just going, oh, if only I'd got you Mark Antony, we wouldn't be here. And sort of Mariam's going, he died? Anyway.
Well, and he was a Roman and a pagan. And I don't know if this is in the author's mind, but Mark Antony was a Roman and a pagan, not a Jew. And so her community would not have seen their union as legitimate unless he had converted, which of course he wouldn't have done. So yeah, I didn't want to become Mark Antony's concubine. I wanted a legitimate marriage. And because Herod is also Jewish, he's also a Hebrew, her union with Herod is legitimate in the eyes of her community. I'm not sure that the author cared about all of that, but that's historically the case, I think.
I think it is in there. I think it is in the mix. There's something really quite complicated going on here, especially as the way that Alexandra's mind is working and Mariam's mind is working about these two different directions. I think definitely the potential that it could have been there is a reasonable assessment. So any additional thoughts? Because we have this sort of family psychodrama going on here in a court setting. And of course, there's this question of, Herod's dead. What do we do now? It's like there's this interesting power vacuum that's going on here. So into that power vacuum, we have the entrance now of Salome. It's going to get a little more complicated now, even more so, because this is Herod's sister. So of course we've got people who hate Herod, a bit conflicted about how much they hate Herod, talking about the affairs of state together in a corner. Enter Salome to this scene.
More plotting yet? Why? Now you have the thing for which so oft you spent your suppliant breath, and Mariam hopes to have another king. Her eyes do sparkle joy for Herod's death.
If she desired another king to have, she might before she came in Herod's bed have had her wish. More kings than one did crave for leave to set a crown upon her head. I think with more than reason she laments that she is freed from such a sad annoy. Who is will weep to part from discontent? And if she joy, she did not causeless joy.
You durst not thus have given your tongue the rein, if noble Herod still remained in life. Your daughter's betters far, I dare maintain, might have rejoiced to be my brother's wife.
My betters far? Base woman, 'tis untrue. You scarce have ever my superiors seen, for Mariam's servants were as good as you, before she came to be Judea's queen.
Now stirs the tongue that is so quickly moved, but more than once your choler have I borne. Your fumish words are sooner said than proved, and Salome's reply is only scorn.
Scorn those that are for thy companions held. Though I thy brother's face have never seen, my birth thy baser birth so far excelled, I had to both of you the princess been. Thou party Jew and party Edomite, thou mongrel issued from rejected race, thy ancestors against the heavens did fight, and thou like them wilt heavenly birth disgrace.
Still twixt you and me with nothing but birth, what odds betwixt your ancestors and mine? Both born of Adam, both were made of earth, and both did come from holy Abraham's line.
I favor thee when nothing else I say. With thy black acts I'll not pollute my breath, else to thy charge I might fully justly lay a shameful life besides a husband's death.
'Tis true indeed, I did the plots reveal that passed betwixt your favourites and you. I meant not, I, a traitor to conceal. Thus Salome your minion Joseph slew.
Heaven, dost thou mean this infamy to smother? Let slandered Mariam ope thy closed ear. Self-guilt hath ever been suspicion's mother, and therefore I this speech with patience bear. No, had not Salome's unsteadfast heart in Josephus' stead her Constabarus place, to free herself she had not used the art to slander hapless Mariam for unchaste.
Come, Mariam, let us go. It is no boot to let the head contend against the foot.
And they exit, leaving Salome alone.
Live Salome to get so base a style name as foot to the proud Mariam? Herod's spirit in happy time for her endured exile. For did he live, she should not miss her merit. But he is dead, and though he were my brother, his death such store of cinders cannot cast my coals of love to quench. For though they smother the flames a while, yet will they out at last. Oh, blessed Arabia, in best climate place, I by the fruit will censure of the tree. 'Tis not in vain they happy name thou hast, if all Arabians like Silleus be. Had not my fate been too contrary, when I on Constabarus first did gaze, Silleus had been object to mine eye, whose looks and personage must all eyes amaze. But now, ill-fated Salome, thy tongue to Constabarus by itself is tied, and now, except I do the Hebrew wrong, I cannot be the fair Arabian's bride. What childish lets are these? Why stand I now on honourable points? 'Tis long ago since shame was written on my tainted brow, and certain 'tis that shame is honour's foe. Had I upon my reputation stood, had I affected an unspotted life, Josephus' veins had still been stuffed with blood, and I to him had lived a sober wife. Then had I never cast an eye of love on Constabarus's now detested face. Then had I kept my thoughts without remove, and blushed at motion of the least disgrace. But shame is gone, and honour wiped away, and impudency on my forehead sits. She bids me work my will without delay, and for my will I will employ my wits. He loves, I love. What then can be the cause? Keeps me from being the Arabian's wife. It is the principles of Moses' laws, for Constabarus still remains in life. If he to me did bear as earnest hate as I to him, for him there were an ease. A separating bill might free his fate from such a yoke that did so much displease. Why should such privilege to man be given? Or given to them, why barred from women then? Are men than we in greater grace with heaven? Or cannot women hate as well as men? I'll be the custom breaker and begin to show my sex the way to freedom's door. And with an offering will I purge my sin. The law was made for none but who are poor. If Herod had lived, I might to him accuse my present lord. But for the future's sake, then would I tell the king he did refuse the son of Babus in his power to take. But now I must divorce him from my bed, that my Silleus may possess his room. Had I not begged his life, he had been dead. I cursed my tongue, the hinderer of his doom. But then my wandering heart to him was fast, nor did I dream of change. Silleus said, he would be here, and see, he comes at last. Had I not named him, longer had he stayed.
And there we'll pause, because as I say, well, this is a flowing scene, lots going on, huge amounts to unpack there, because people are being so really horrible to each other. I mean, they are flinging insults at each other in ways that are really quite horrific, especially considering that one of the people throwing some of the most racially barbed insults is our title character. And the way Salome reacts to that, and the other insults about Salome and her ongoing marital positions, true or untrue, is there's a lot to unpack. Lynn.
Yeah, so much. So going back in the scene, it really feels to me like Mariam's trying to have it both ways. She's in her conversation with her mother, Alexandra, she's kind of defending her position as the king's wife, the mother of the legitimate heirs of Judea. You know, Herod was the king, I was his wife, he's named my sons as his heirs. So she's sort of defending Herod and Herod's legitimacy there, but on comes Herod's sister, and he's like, and she's like, oh, base born, you're not even really a Hebrew, you're tainted. Like, if it's true of Salome, it's true of Herod, right? So, like, is Herod's family legit or not? It depends on if it's serving Mariam's purpose at the moment. It feels to me. And then that amazing speech of Salome. So evidently Salome was married to Josephus, betrayed him to the powers that be in order to marry the guy whose name begins with a C, Constabarus, but now she's decided she's not in love with him anymore. She's in love with Silleus, so she's going to try to get him in trouble or divorce him or get him to divorce her or something, so she can I mean, that's not really very admirable behavior, but she also says some things that are really thought-provoking, like, why should a man be able to divorce his wife and a wife not be able to divorce her husband? Why is that? Why can't I have what I want just because I'm a woman? So just like fascinating stuff going on here.
Yeah, there's this moment when Salome, where you want to go fist pump, go, yes, that's exactly right. And then the moment she's finished saying that, she says, and if only Herod wasn't dead, I could have my husband murdered. And I could have him executed. I'll have to find another way. And so the two things are happening simultaneously. And you're absolutely right. If she just had, the right to divorce, so many people, she wouldn't have to keep killing people. It's so annoying. There's Salome has so much going on. Other thoughts in the room. And considering some of the provocations she's getting from other people, she has every reason to want to murder lots of people. Anyway, Rachael, then Elizabeth.
She reminds me of the Countess, the insatiate Countess, that so much of who she is, there would be nothing that an audience could find like disagreeable about her if she lived in modern times, because there would not be the need for her to take these extreme actions to have her freedom. And I think there's something interesting in this, that Salome and Mariam are kind of these foils, because Salome, a lot of what Mariam's doing is what she was saying, or how she's going back and forth, sounded kind of similar to what Salome is saying, but like Mariam's trying to keep it hidden so as not to be censured by other people. And then on top of it, there's that that racist stuff that Mariam's saying. And there's those videos of Karens that come out that people post online, and that it's, she's trying to hide behind this this idea of like, maybe she's not othered in the society that she's in, for her race or her religion. And that gives her a point of power, in the intersection of things that Salome might not have access to. And so it could make people more easily on Mariam's side than on Salome's side for the prejudices that they have. And she knows that. And I think she's using that. And it could be one of those situations, like there was this one a Victoria's Secret Karen, where she was yelling and screaming on the floor, this woman, and going to attack this other woman. And people asked the woman who was being attacked to leave instead of the woman who was on the floor pretending to be injured. And it kind of feels the same with Mariam a little bit, because that racism that she throws out kind of sucks the sympathy you could have for her away. Where Salome, you think because of her name and because of the dance, the Seven Veils or something, even if this isn't the same Salome, that you think you wouldn't have the same, whatever for her, but she comes out and she says all these things, and you're like, it feels like this is the right side that she's on.
Yeah, and we've got this power struggle that's now starting, because everyone thinks Herod is dead. And so Mariam and Alexandra are just saying, well, we have, shall we say, ancient right on our side, so maybe there's a power grab that we can grab here. Salome is on the back foot because all of her power, all of her agency comes from Herod and is given to her by Herod, because he's a man and he's the king. And so... And she's the only one who's actually sad. She is sad for her, but she's a bit conflicted in a different way from Mariam, because she's sad, but she's also got another happy thing in her life, because she's quite keen on Sileus, who's about to enter. Elizabeth, then Lynn.
Yeah, I was just like really blown away by Elizabeth Cary, because she just gives us these three really powerful, really dominant women characters. These female characters, and they pack a punch from the get-go. And what I was really enjoying was, as Rachael was saying, and as you were saying just now, these three characters are so different. Their outlooks on life are so different, but where they kind of convene is their concept of their gender. I loved it. I loved it when Salome said, why should such privilege to man be given? Or given to them, why barred from women then? And I thought, oh, that's really Cary coming through the lines there, coming through her character.
And what's nice is, they are also flawed as well. They have all these wonderful things. They're characters with a life, and they push you in different directions. There isn't too much. There isn't soapboxing per se, or it's something from a position, because you go one way and then things are undermined or improved in different ways. I really love that. They have life, Lynn, and then we will need to move on.
Yeah. It's very similar observations to Elizabeth. That we definitely have personal relations with very complex family relationships and personalities and things, but so far the play is highly political. The power struggle is the political power struggle, I think, is really the real driving engine here, and all of the characters are female, and I find that really interesting and really refreshing. And even our fourth character, who's about to come on, is only important because he's the object of desire of one of the politically important women. So, yeah, that's something that I'm really enjoying about this.
Okay, we're going to run this act now to the end. We have a sort of ongoing flowing scene. Act 1 is basically one scene that just continues. It's sometimes broken down into individual scenes. So we have lover number 3, Silleus, coming on, and in a little bit her current husband Constabarus will join. So there's political intrigue, but there's also a wonderful soap opera quality to this that I really enjoy. Anyway, enter Silleus.
Well found, fair Salome, Judea's pride. Hath they, innate wisdom, found the way innate to make Sileus deem him deified, by gaining thee a more than precious prey?
I have devised the best I can devise. A more imperfect means was never found. But what cares Salome? It doth suffice if our endeavours with their end be crowned. In this our land we have an ancient use, permitted first by our lawgiver's head, who hates his wife, though for no just abuse, may with a bill divorce her from his bed. But in this custom women are not free, yet I for once will wrest it. Blame not thou the ill I do, since what I do's for thee, though others blame, Silleus should allow.
Think Salome Silleus hath the tongue to censure her fair actions? Let my blood bedash my proper brow for such a wrong. The being yours can make even vices good. Arabia, joy, prepare thy earth with green. Thou never happy wert indeed till now. Now shall thy ground be trod by beauty's queen. Her foot is destined to depress thy brow. Thou shalt, fair Salome, command as much as if the royal ornament were thine. The weakness of Arabia's king is such, the kingdom is not his so much as mine. My mouth is our Babus oracle, and who thinks not aught but what Silleus will. And thou, rare creature, Asia's miracle shall be to me as it, Babus still.
'Tis not for glory I thy love accept. Judea yields me honours, worthy store. Supply had not affection in my bosom crept, my native country should my life deplore. Were not Silleus he with whom I go, I would not change my Palestine for Rome. Much less would I a glorious state to show, go far to purchase an Arabian tomb.
Far it be from Sileus so to think. I know 'tis thy gratitude requites the love that is in me, and shall not shrink till death do sever me from earth's delights.
But whist, methinks the wolf is in our talk. Begone, Silleus. Who doth here arrive? 'Tis Constabarus that doth hither walk. I'll find a quarrel, him from me to drive.
Farewell, but were it not for thy command and his despite, Silleus here would stand.
And exit Silleus, enter Constabarus.
Oh, Salome, how much you wrong your name, your race, your country, and your husband most. A stranger's private conference is shame. I blush for you that have your blushing lost. Oft have I found you to my grief, consorted with his base Arabian here. Heaven knows that you have been my comfort chief. Then do not now my greater plague appear. Now by the stately carved edifice that on Mount Zion makes so fair a show, and by the altar fit for sacrifice, I love thee more than thou thyself dost know. Oft with the silent sorrow have I heard how ill Judea's mouth doth censure thee. And did I not thine honour much regard, thou shouldst not be exhorted thus for me. Didst thou but know the worth of honest fame, how much a virtuous woman is esteemed, thou wouldst, like hell, eschew deserved shame, and seek to be both chaste and chastely deemed. Our wise prince did say, and true he said, a virtuous woman crowns her husband's head.
Did I for this uprear thy low estate? Did I for this requital beg thy life, that thou hadst forfeited to hapless fate, to be to such a thankless wretch the wife? This hand of mine hath lifted up thy head, which many a day ago had fallen full low, because the sons of Babus are not dead. To me thou dost both life and fortune owe.
You have my patience oft exercised. Yous make my collar keep within the banks. Yet boast no more, but be by me advised. A benefit upbraided forfeits thanks, or reproached. I prithee, Salome, dismiss this mood. Thou dost not know how ill it fits thy place. My words were all intended for thy good, to raise thine honour and to stop disgrace.
To stop disgrace? Take thou no care for me. Nay, do thy worst. Thy worst I set not by. Care not, for no shame of mine is like to light on thee. Thy love and admonitions I defy. Thou shalt no hour longer call me wife. Thy jealousy procures my hate so deep, that I from thee do mean to free my life by a divorcing bill before I sleep.
Are Hebrew women now transformed to men? Why do you not as well our battles fight, and wear our armour? Suffer this, and then let all the world be topsy-turvied quite, turned upside down. Let fishes graze, beasts swim, and birds descend. Let fire burn downwards while the earth aspires. Let winter's heat and summer's cold offend. Let thistles grow on vines and grapes on briars. Set us to spin or sew, or at the best, make us wood hewers, water-bearing wights. The sacred service let us take no rest. Use us as Joshua did Gibeonites.
Hold on your talk, till it be time to end. For me, I am resolved it shall be so. Though I be the first that to this course do bend, I shall not be the last, full well I know.
Why then, be witness heaven, the judge of sins. Be witness spirits that eschew the dark. Be witness angels, witness cherubims, whose semblance sits upon the holy ark. Be witness earth, be witness Palestine, be witness David's city. My heart, Jerusalem, did ever merit such an act of thine, or if the fault be mine that makes us part, since mildest Moses, friend unto the Lord, did work his wonders in the land of Ham, and slew the firstborn babes without a sword, in sign whereof we eat the holy lamb, till now that 1400 years are past, since first the law with us has been in force, you are the first, and will, I hope, be last, that ever sought her husband to divorce.
I mean not to be led by precedent. My will shall be to me instead of law.
I fear me much you will too late repent that you have ever lived so void of awe. This is Sileus' love that makes you thus. Reverse all order, you must next be his. But if my thoughts are right, the cause discuss. In winning you, he gains no lasting bliss. I was Sileus, and not long ago, Josephus then was Constabarus now. When you became my friend, you proved his foe. And now for him, you break me to your vow.
If once I loved you, greater is your debt. For certain 'tis that you deserved it not. And undeserved love we soon forget. And therefore that to me can be no blot. But now fare ill, my once beloved lord, yet never more beloved than now abhorred.
And exit Salome.
Yet Constabarus biddeth thee farewell. Farewell, light creature, heaven forgive thy sin. My prophesying spirit doth foretell thy wavering thoughts do yet but new begin. Yet I have better escaped than Joseph did. But if our Herod's death had been delayed, the valiant youths that I so long have hid had been by her, and I for them betrayed. Therefore, in happy hour did Caesar give the fatal blow to wanton Antony. For had he lived, our Herod then should live. But great Antonius's death made Herod die. Had he enjoyed his breath, and not I alone, had been in danger of a deadly fall. But Mariam had the way of peril gone, though by the tyrant most beloved of all. The sweet-faced Mariam, as free from guilt as heaven from spots, yet had her lord come back, her purest blood had been unjustly spilt, and Salome it was would work her act, though all Judea yield her innocent, she oft has been near to punishment.
Exit Constabarus, and the chorus speaks.
Those minds that wholly dote upon delight, except they only joy in inward good, unless still hope at last to hop upon the right, and so from sand they leap in loathsome mud, fond wretches seeking what they cannot find, for no content attends a wavering mind. If wealth they do desire and wealth attain, then wondrous fain would they to honour leap. If mean degree they do in honour gain, they would but wish a little higher step. Thus step to step and wealth to wealth they add, yet cannot all their plenty make them glad. Yet oft we see that in some humble state are cheerful, pleasant, happy, and content, when those indeed that are of higher state, with vain additions to do their thoughts torment. One would do to his mind his honor, his fortune bind, the other to his fortune frames his mind. To wish variety is a sign of grief, for if you like your state as now it is, why should an alteration bring relief? Nay, change would then be feared as loss of bliss. That man is only happy in his state that is delighted in a settled state. That man is only happy in his fate that is delighted in a settled state. Still Mariam wished she from her lord were free, for expectation and variety. Yet now she sees her wishes prosperous be. She grieves because her lord so soon did die. Who can those vast imaginations feed, wherein a property contempt doth breed? Were Herod now perchance to live again, she would again be much grieved at that. All that she may, she ever doth disdain. Her wishes guide her to she knows not what, and sad must be their looks, their honour sour, that care for nothing being in their power.
And thus ends Act 1. So, yeah, we get more stuff from Salome there, arguing with her husband. Her husband's not keen on the idea that the wife might want to try and divorce him. Yeah, you could get the impression he's quite a conservative chap. I think he's very much of the old school. Yeah, there's some great and great back and forth between them. I mean, it's just that's really, really nice. Yeah. And then there's chorus, does some stuff. Thoughts in the room, Elizabeth and then Rachael.
Yeah, I was just thinking, what did Salome see in Constabarus? Because they talk about how much they used to love one another. She specifically talks about how much she used to love him, but I don't see it. I don't see where Constabarus was this like Casanova that she fell for.
You know, a few years pass, he puts on a little weight, you know, he's just, and, you know, you know, he's always in front of the television, drinking beer, you know, he's just not that guy that she met earlier. Sorry, was it Rachael next, then other people? So Rachael.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was so enchanted by this scene, and still enchanted by Salome, because she always has something to say in return, and you're like, oh, that's a good point. It's a way better point than what anybody else is making. And with Constabarus, like I was gonna say, this is from me reading my like Heian diaries of women again, but the nobility, like noble women couldn't be legally like struck by their husbands, and I mean Salome's was, you know, sister to like the most powerful man in the land, and there's no sort of physical abuse or something that this man could have on her, so perhaps his tune is also changing. You know, it's been changing, and you know, there's some actual fear here of his changing, because he does seem like a possessive fellow. Like she left her first husband for him, and maybe he's over the years become like very possessive because he thinks that she'll leave him for somebody else, and that's what winds up driving her away, is that he continues to try and possess this woman who wants, you know, freedom and to have her will.
And she also has stuff on him. I mean, this is the thing to remember. Constabarus, and it's not wholly clear yet, it becomes a bit more clear in scenes to come, has got some people in his basement who he was supposed to have sort of got rid of ages ago, who he's been keeping, and Salome knows this, and he's been keeping this from Herod. So, you know, this is the thing again about the power thing. In the absence of Herod, Constabarus is sort of gets away scot-free at the moment with this thing. This is Salome's got nothing on him that she could have used. You know, when Herod was about, she could have just got rid of Constabarus. You know, and it's not just that she divorced her previous. You know, previous husband's a bit. So Constabarus also may have a certain, you know, fear and legitimate fear for his life here as well. And again, that question that Elizabeth brought up, you know, how much actual real emotion is going on here? Is there still some weird love stuff going on underneath the surface? You know, it's not just that Constabarus is a bit old-fashioned and, you know, the standard bearer for the patriarchy. You know, there are actual emotions going on here as well, and things, which is interesting. Other thoughts from the room? I think I saw Lynn. Other hand wavers are available. I see Eric after that. Lynn.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with Rachael that we do we do find ourselves kind of rooting for Salome in many ways. It's like, well, good point. But on the other hand, if you flip the genders, which, you know, just did a thought experiment, and you had a man who threw over his first wife to marry someone else that he'd fallen in love with, and now is going to throw over his second wife to marry someone else, we wouldn't admire that. You know, he'd get away with it because men get away with it in this culture, in many cultures, but we'd be like, that guy's kind of a shit. So as much as we kind of want Salome to have what she wants, it's also like it's not really a sign of like emotional maturity and stability that she can't make a relationship work. So, you know, I think she's really a very ambiguous character. And another thing I noticed is that as much, you know, tension and, yeah, good relationships gone bad, there's just kind of nothing quite like that. You know, as much bad blood as there is between them, Constabarus would be justified in the context of the time where the play is set and when the play is written, of calling her all kinds of really unflattering, highly gendered terms that he doesn't use. He calls her light, and that's about the, you know, meaning not, meaning, yeah, kind of, it's a nice way of saying fickle. But, you know, he doesn't call her a whore, he doesn't call her a slut, and that kind of language is all over texts in these periods when women seem to change their minds about who they want to bestow themselves on. So, I mean, he's mad, but, he could be actually, his responses to her could be much dirtier and much more insulting, and he refrains from that. That's just not for me.
He's much more concerned about the world order, that you're changing the order of things. We are good Jews here. This is what the standard of the time says we should be doing. You're going against that. That is there's something wrong about that. That he can't see her point of view around that. Alan, then Eric.
I must admit, I'm seeing Salome as being this almost archetypal rich bitch who's been read too many princess stories as a child and believed that whatever she wishes for, she'll get.
Other thoughts from the room on that? Elizabeth?
I instantly thought of Dynasty when Alan said that, and they're kind of like women just slapping each other in the face and kind of stuff. And I thought that is a very, very valid point, Alan. But I think it reduces Salome to being quite one-dimensional. I think there's a bit more to her than that, but it remains to be seen from the text.
I mean, there's definitely a soap opera quality to all of the relationships, but I don't know, but simply by the fact that they have these lengthy asides and everybody's getting them to a degree, where we're getting inner monologue, which I don't think that kind of soap opera gives you. Actually, you only get the situations. Eric, and then we'll need to move on.
I was just going to say that when I was reading the chorus, I was like, oh, this is basically Freitas, but like with female characters. Because it's about sort of like, there's this whole thing of wanting something that you can't have, which was quite, I don't know, obviously we've read Freitas by Samuel Daniel. We read it a few weeks ago, or I don't know when, I don't know what day.
Or in the future, depending on how the ordering system of these videos goes.
Yeah, but it's just sort of like, because Lynn had mentioned that it starts off as highly political, and then we get this sort of exchange between Salome and Constabarus, and it becomes personal as well. So it's kind of that overlap between personal and political that is interesting as well.
Yeah, which I always find really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And Constabarus sort of again just reminds us that the title of the play is Mariam, by just talking about sweet-faced Mariam and free from guilt, but she's probably going to get screwed. And it's an interesting sort of just a reminder to where the play might be going, even though we all really want to maybe follow Salome. Anyway, Act 2, a lot more different scenes as opposed to this one rolling one. So Act 2, Scene 1. Another one of Herod's siblings. So enter Pheroras and Graphina, and we'll see what they do.
'Tis true, Graphina, now the time draws nigh wherein the holy priest with hallowed rite the happy long-desired knot shall tie, Pheroras and Graphina to unite. How oft have I with lifted hands implored this blessed hour, till now implored in vain, which hath my wished liberty restored and made my subject self my own again. Thy love, fair maid, upon mine eye doth sit, whose nature hot doth dry the moisture all, which were in nature and in reason fit for my monarchal brother's death to fall. Had Herod lived, he would have plucked my hand from fair Graphina's palm perforce, and tied the same in hateful and despised band. For I had had a baby to my bride. Scarce can an infant tongue with easy voice her name distinguish to another's ear. Yet had he lived, his power, and not my choice, had made me solemnly to contract swear. Have I not cause in such a change to joy? What though she be my niece, a princess born? Near is blood without respect, high birth a toy, since love can teach us blood and kindred scorn. What boot it if that he hath raised my head to be his realm's co-partner, kingdom's mate? Withal he kept Graphina from my bed, and wished me more wished by me than thrice Jusia's state. Oh, could not he be skillful judge in love that doted so upon his Mariam's face? He for his passion Doris did remove. I needed not a lawful wife displace. It could not be, but he had power to judge. But he hath never grudged a kingdom's share. This well-known happiness to me did grudge, and meant to be therein without compare. Else had I been his equal in love's host. For though the diadem on Mariam's head corrupt the vulgar judgments, I will boast Graphina's brow as white, her cheeks as red. Why speakest thou not, fair creature? Move thy tongue, for silence is a sign of discontent. It were to both our loves too great a wrong, if now this hour do finely sadly bent.
Mistake me not, my lord. Too oft have I desired this time to come with winged feet, to be enwrapped with grief when 'tis too nigh. You know my wishes ever yours did meet. If I be silent, 'tis no more but fear that I should say too little when I speak. But since you will my imperfections bear, in spite of doubt, I will my silence break. Yet might amazement tie my moving tongue, but that I know before Pheroras' mind. I have admired your affection long, and cannot yet therein a reason find. Your hand hath lifted me from lowest state to highest eminence, wondrous grace. And me your handmaid have you made your mate, though all but you alone do count me base. You have preserved me pure at my request, though you so weak a vassal might constrain to yield your high will. Then last, not best, in my respect a princess you disdain. Then need not all these favors study crave, to be requited by a simple maid. And study still, you know, must silence have. Then be my cause for silence justly weighed. But study cannot boot not I requite, except your lowly handmaid, steadfast love and fast obedience may your mind delight. I will not promise more than I can prove.
That study need not let Graphina smile, and I desire no greater recompense. I cannot vaunt me in a glorious style, nor show my love in far-fetched eloquence. But this, believe me, never Herod's heart hath held his prince-born beauty-famed wife in nearer place than thou, fair virgin, art, to him that holds the glory of his life. Should Herod's body leave the sepulchre and entertain the severed ghost again, he should not be my nuptial hinderer, except he hindered it with dying pain. Come, fair Graphina, let us go in state, thus wish endeared time to celebrate.
And so they exit. So here we have another reaction to Herod's probable death. Quick, let's get married because Herod doesn't like our match. He wants me to marry someone, some young princess. I'm not into that. I want to marry you, wonderful handmaid. And a handmaid sort of going, maybe we should wait. Maybe we should be a little more careful. But yeah, get the impression Pheroras is not that gutted about his brother's potential death here.
Yeah, and doesn't he say the person that Herod wanted his brother to marry was their niece, like maybe Salome's daughter? What?
Yeah, it's basically a child, you know. It's
basically
not good.
I'd have to wait a decade or more to have a real marriage with her to consummate the union. Or maybe he's just creeped out by it.
You get the impression he's really not keen on this arrangement at all. Eric, then Rachael.
I was going to say that it's interesting how, like, sort of here we've got another mention of Herod, and it's like kind of Herod is like the sort of ghost looming over the text kind of thing. Like you kind of get the, like, you know, if you were making a film of this, you'd have like sort of, I don't know, maybe like cut ins and fade ins of like Herod appearing in like random points. I know, just it's an interesting sort of thing.
Well, it's sort of like the death of Stalin, if you've seen the film, where, you know, it's all about that power vacuum that the moment he's dead, or potentially dead, everyone's sort of running around going, well, what can I get to do now? Who's on the death list, who isn't on the death list? Rachael.
I was just gonna say, like, I guess I don't know what to really call them, but how we don't just have these gender things being pushed, or this religious or racial stuff being like pushed, that's like different from people seeing, but also like this playing of class, you know, that Graphina is not like being shown to be this power grabber person, and Pheroras isn't being shown to be this guy who's overly, you know, emphasizing youth, or, you know, the chastity of young women or something like that, or, you know, coming in and being like a guy that they could make like a cuckold joke about. That there's this so much anti-cliche going, and there all these characters that come to us, not a single one is uncomplicated, and because they're not, you know, all of them are a little complex, there's so much more that you could build behind this as an actor or as a production, and yeah, you know, nobody's coming to this perfect or as the villain.
Though sadly, this is all we see of Graphina. We will never see her again. We will see Pheroras again because he's important to the plot. We need to move on. Act 2, Scene 2. Enter Constabarus and the two sons of Babus, or Babus, depending on what you find more amusing as a pronunciation. So anyway, Babus's first son speaks as they come out of the basement. He's been keeping them for how many years? Goodness only knows.
Now, valiant friend, you have our lives redeemed, which lives as saved by you, to you are due. Command and you shall see yourself esteemed. Our lives and liberties belong to you. This twice 6 years with hazard of your life, you have concealed us from the tyrant's sword. Though cruel Herod's sister were your wife, you durst in scorn of fear this grace afford. In recompense we know not what to say. A poor reward were thanks for such a merit. Our truest friendship at your feet we lay, the best requital to a noble spirit.
Oh, how you wrong our friendship, valiant youth. With friends there is not such a word as debt. Where amity is tied with bond of truth, all benefits are there in common set. Then is the golden age with them renewed, all names and properties are banished quite. Division and distinction are eschewed, each hath to what belongs to others right. And 'tis not sure so full a benefit, freely to give as freely to require. A bounteous act hath glory following it, they cause the glory that the act desire. All friendship should the pattern imitate of Jesse's son and valiant Jonathan, but neither sovereign's father nor father's hate, a friendship fixed on virtue sever can. Too much of this, 'tis written in the heart, and needs no amplifying with the tongue. Now may you from your living tomb depart, where Herod's life hath kept you over long. Too great an injury to a noble mind to be quick buried. You had purchased some years ago, but that you were confined, while thousand meaner did advance their name. Your best of life, the prime of all your years, your time of action is from you bereft. 12 winters have you overpassed in fears, yet if you use it well, enough is left. And who can doubt but you will use it well? Sons of Babus have it by descent, in all their thoughts, each action to excel, boldly to act and wisely to invent.
Had it not like the hateful cuckoo been, whose riper age his infant nurse doth kill, so long we had not kept ourselves unseen, but Constabarus safely crossed our will. For had the tyrant fixed his cruel die on our concealed faces, wrath had swayed his justice so, and that he had forced us die. and dearer price than life we should have paid, for you, our truest friend, had fallen with us, and we, much like a house on pillars set, had clean depressed our prop, and therefore thus our ready will with our concealment met. But now that you, fair lord, are dangerous, the sons of Babus show their rigor show, and prove it was not baseness did oppress our hearts so long, but honor kept them low.
Yet do I fear this tale of Herod's death, at last will prove a very tale indeed. It gives me strongly in my mind his breath will be preserved to make a number bleed. I wish not therefore to be set at large, yet peril to myself I do not fear. Let us for some days longer be your charge, till we of Herod's state the truth do hear.
What, art thou turned a coward, noble youth? Thou beginst to doubt undoubted truth?
Were it my brother's tongue that cast this doubt, I from his heart would have the question out, with this keen falcon. But 'tis you, my lord, against whose head I must not lift a sword. I am so tired in gratitude.
Believe, you have no cause to take it ill. If any word of mine your heart did grieve, the word dissented from the speaker's will. I know it was not fear the doubt begun, but rather valour and your care of me. A coward could not be your father's son, yet no, I doubts unnecessary be. For who can think that in Antonius's fall, Herod, his bosom friend, should scape unbruised? Then, Caesar, we might thee an idiot call, if thou by him should be so far abused.
Lord Constabarus, let me tell you this. Upon submission, Caesar will forgive, and therefore, though the tyrant did amiss, it may fall out that he will let him live. Not many years agone it is since I, directed thither by my father's care, in famous Rome for twice 12 months did lie, my life from Hebrews' cruelty to spare. There, though I were yet but of boyish age, I bent mine eye to mark, mine ears to hear, where I did see Octavius, then a page, when first he did to Julius' sight appear. Methought I saw such a mildness in his face, and such a sweetness in his looks did grow, withal commixed with so majestic grace, his physiognomy his fortune did foreshow. For this I am indebted to thine eye, but then mine ear received more evidence, but by that I knew his love to clemency, how he with the hottest color could dispense.
But we have more than barely heard the news. It hath been twice confirmed, and though some tongue might be so false with false report to views, a false report has never lasted long. But be it so that Herod have his life, concealment would not then a whit avail. For certain 'tis that she that was my wife would not to set her accusation fail. And therefore now, as good at the venture give, and free ourselves from blot of cowardice, as show a pitiful desire to live. For who can pity, but they must despise?
I yield, but to necessity I yield. I dare upon this doubt engage mine arm, that Herod shall again this kingdom wield, and prove his death to be a false alarm.
I doubt it too, God grant it be an error, 'tis but best without a cause to be terror, and rather had I, though my soul be mine, my soul should lie, than prove it the true divine.
Come, let fear go seek a dastard's nest. Undaunted courage lies in a noble breast.
So we have more of this sort of stolid honour stuff from Constabarus going, look, don't thank me for hiding you for 12 years. Don't expect repayment or anything. Don't try, because we're mates. We're mates. That's what we are. I'll be insulted if you try and you try and buy around. I'll get really cross with you, kind of stuff. And then they're sort of going, hi, we're institutionalized now. We don't want to leave our little hole in the ground. Is it really safe? And go, yeah, it's perfectly safe. It's perfectly. Herod's definitely dead. I've heard it from two sources. I saw it on Twitter from two different people. He's definitely dead. It was on Twitter and Facebook, so he's definitely not here. It's fine. You sure? Because we've met Octavius, and he changes his mind. Where's this gonna go? Where's this gonna go?
Yeah. I was just observing that in the chat that first we had like, oh, if only he hadn't died, if only Herod were still alive, from a couple of different people, and then his brother says if he were to come back to life, if he were to leave his tomb, and now we have these people saying it's just a rumor. Are we sure? Are we sure? So it's kind of these escalating moments in the text where it's seeding bigger and bigger doubts in the reader's mind as to what's going on here. I didn't structurally tribute to Alexandra there because we have to say the word structurally. Structurally, I think that's very nice.
Yeah. I'm going to have to move us forward. I hate to do it, but we'll have a bit more Constabarus in a moment. But first, we have Act 2, Scene 3, and we get to meet the previously mentioned Doris and her son Antipater. So let's find out how they're faring in the possibility of Herod being dead. So ex-wife number 1.
You royal buildings, bow your lofty side and scope to her that is by right your queen. Let your humility upbraid the pride of those in whom no due respect is seen. 9 times we have with trumpets haughty sound and banished sour leaven from our taste. Observe the feast that takes the fruit from ground. Since I, fair city, did behold thee last, so long it is since Mariam's pure cheek did rob from mine the glory, and so long since I returned my native town to seek. And with me nothing but the sense of wrong, and thee, my boy, whose birth, though great it were, yet have thy after fortunes proved but poor. When thou wert born, how little did I fear thou shouldst be thrust from forth thy father's door. Art thou not Herod's right begotten son? Was not the helpless Doris Herod's wife? Yes, ere he had the Hebrew kingdom won, I was companion to his private life. Was not I fair enough to be his queen? Why, ere thou wert to me, false monarch tied, my lack of beauty might as well be seen, as after I had lived 5 years thy bride. Yet then thine oath came pouring like the rain, which all affirmed my face without compare, and that if thou mightst Doris' love obtain, for all the world besides thou didst not care. When I was young and rich and nobly born, and therefore worthy to be Herod's mate, yet thou, ungrateful, cast me off with scorn, with heaven's purpose raised your meaner fate. Oft have I begged for vengeance for this fact, and with dejected knees, aspiring hands, have prayed the highest powers to enact the fall of her that on my trophy stands. Revenge I have, according to my will, yet where I wished this vengeance did not light. I wished should high-hearted Mariam kill, but it against my whilom lord did fight. With thee, sweet boy, I came to try if thou before his bastards might be placed in Herod's royal seat and dignity. But Mariam's infants here are only graced, and now for us there doth no hope remain. Yet we will not return till Herod's end be more confirmed. Perchance he is not slain, so glorious fortunes may my boy attend. For if he live, he'll think it does suffice that he to Doris shows such cruelty. For as he did my wretched life despise, so do I know he shall despised die. Let him but prove as natural to thee as cruel to thy miserable mother. His cruelty shall not upbraided be, but in thy fortunes. I his faults will smother.
Each mouth within the city loudly cries that Herod's death is certain. Therefore we had best some subtle hidden plot devise, that Mariam's children might subverted be, by poison's drink, or else by murderous knife, so we may be advanced. It skills not how, They are but bastards. You are Herod's wife, and a foul adultery blotteth Mariam's brow.
They are too strong to be by us removed, or else revenge's foulest spotted face by our detested wrongs might be approved. But weakness must to greater power give place. But let us now retire to grieve alone, for solitariness best fitteth moan.
And they exit. So Doris, really not keen on Mariam there. Quite disappointed that Herod is potentially the dead one there. Again, people coming into town to think about what can they get out of the change in the balance of power, and her son there seems to have fed off a certain level of rage from Doris, because he's a lovely little psycho, isn't he? He's, it's just going, hey, let's just poison them all. Yeah. Well, nobody, while everyone's confused, that'll be cool. Maybe later, dear. Yeah. Just other little pen portraits being flown in here. We will meet Doris again. Do not worry. Any thoughts on the room? We've got 2 scenes to do. We've got a couple of minutes to chat about each of these things. Lynn.
Well, you get the feeling from this that Herod's younger children by Mariam are little kids. They're not adults, and so maybe that's the niece that Herod wanted his brother to marry. I want you, Herod, to marry my daughter. So we'll keep it all in the family in case my son dies young or something. My brother and my daughter's children will inherit the kingdom.
I don't know whether we're over inferring on that, but that's a nicely horrible possibility. Yeah, I mean, Herod isn't short of children. It has to be said here. We've got and a confusing family structure. Any other thoughts before we move on? Rachael?
No. I wonder if the playwright had in mind, Henry VIII, just because he had so many wives, and because there was a whole bunch of, I guess, plots between the two of them, between Elizabeth and Mary and between their mothers, and that complexity it created. And yeah.
That's an interesting thought. I have no idea, and it's probably unprovable, even if it were true. But it's a lovely thought. Elizabeth?
I think Doris and Antipater make a really good addition to the cast. As they were speaking to each other, I was struck by the fact that we hadn't seen them before, and I think Cary brings them in really seamlessly into the narrative, and we just accept that they're there. We just accept that they've arrived. But the way they enter the narrative is also like they're trying to usurp the throne.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, they've come in. They're looking at the city. We're back. They've been mentioned earlier, so they're not a total surprise. That's what this act is sort of doing. It's lots of people who are mentioned in Act 1 now turn up. Alan, then we will need to move on.
Yeah, I mean, the one word I would take issue with from Elizabeth's comment was usurp, because effectively what they're trying to say is, no, we're going to take back the succession to the firstborn.
Because
to restore what should have been rather than what has been later legislated.
Yeah, because Herod was keen on me until he saw Mariam. Well, let's see if we can at least make sure that the son inherits. That's the power struggle here. That's the power grab, making sure that the son, her son, is the one who takes over from Herod, assuming Herod is dead. So again, power struggle, complex family stuff. Anyway, we've got to go to Act 2, Scene 4. And we have the return of Constabarus and Sileus, and it looks like there's going to be a bit of a squaring off between husband number 2 and lover number 3.
Well met, Judean lord, the only white Silleus wished to see. I am to call thy tongue to strict account.
For what despite? I ready am to hear and answer all. but if directly at the cause I guess that breeds this challenge, you must pardon me, and now some other ground of fight profess. For I have vowed, vows must unbroken be.
What may be your exception? Let me know.
Why, aught concerning Salome. My sword shall not be wielded for a cause so low. A blow for her my arm will scorn to afford.
It is for slandering her unspotted name. And I will make thee in thy vows despite suck up the breath that did my mistress blame and swallow it again to do her right.
I prithee give some other quarrel ground to find beginning. Rail against my name or strike thee first, or let some scarlet wound inflame my courage. Give me words of shame. Do thou our Moses' sacred laws disgrace? Deprave our nation, do me some despite. I'm apt enough to fight in any case, but yet for Salome I will not fight.
Not I, for aught but Salome, my sword that owes his service to her sacred name, will not an edge for other cause afford. In other fight, I'm not sure of fame.
For her, I pity thee enough already. For her, I therefore will not mangle thee. A woman with a heart so most unsteady will of herself sufficient torture be. I cannot envy for so light a gain. Her mind with such inconstancy doth run, as with a word thou didst her love obtain, so with a word she will from thee be won. So light as her possessions for most day, as is her affection's loss. To me 'tis known, as good go hold the wind as make her stay. She never loves but till she call her own. She merely is a painted sepulchre that is both fair and vilely foul at once, though on her outside graces garnish her mind is filled with worse than rotten bones, and ever ready lifted is a hand to aim destruction at a husband's throat. For proofs, Josephus and myself to stand, though once on both of us she seemed to dote. Her mouth, though serpent-like, it never hisses, yet like a serpent, poisons where it kisses.
Well, thou barkst, but wilt not bite.
I tell thee still, for her, I will not fight.
Why then I call thee coward.
From my heart I give thee thanks. A coward's hateful name cannot to valiant minds a blot impart, and therefore I with joy receive the same. Thou knowest I am no coward. Thou wert by at the Arabian battle t'other day, and sawest my sword with daring valiancy among the faint Arabians cut my way. The blood of foes no more could let it shine, and 'twas enamelled with some of thine. But now, have at thee, not for Salome I fight, but to discharge a coward's style. Here 'gins the fight that shall not parted be, before a soul or two endure exile.
And we can infer that this is when they start doing some fighty action. The fighty action may continue during the dialogue.
Thy sword hath made some windows for my blood to show a horrid crimson physiognomy. To breathe for both of us, methinks 'twere good. The day will give us time enough to die.
With all my heart take breath, thou shalt have time. And if thou list, at 12 months, let us end. Into thy cheeks there doth a paleness climb. Thou canst not from my sword thyself defend. What needest thou for Salome to fight? Thou hast her, and mayst keep her. None strives for her. I willingly to thee resign my right, for in my very soul I do abhor her. Thou seest that I am fresh, unwounded yet, then not for fear I do this offer make. Thou art with loss of blood to fight unfit, for here is one, and there another take.
I will not leave so long as breath remains within my wounded body. Spare your words, my heart in blood's stead courage entertains. Salome's love no place for fear affords.
Oh, could thy soul but prophesy like mine, I would not wonder thou shouldst long to die. For Salome, if I aright divine, will be than death, a greater misery.
Then list I'll breathe no longer.
Do thy will. I hateless fight, and charitably kill. Aye, aye!
And they fight, though they've probably been fighting for a little bit anyway.
Pity thyself, Sileus. Let not death intrude before his time into thy heart. Alas, it is too late to fear. His breath is now from his body about to part. How farest thou, brave Arabian?
Very well. My leg is hurt. I can no longer fight. It only grieves me that so soon I fell before fair Salome's wrongs I came to right.
Thy wounds are less than mortal, never fear. Thou shalt a safe and quick recovery find. Come, I will thee unto my lodging bear. I hate thy body, but I love thy mind.
Thanks, noble Jew. I see a courteous foe. Stern enmity to friendship can no art. Had not my heart and tongue engaged me so, I would from thee no foe, but friend depart. My heart to Salome is tied too fast to leave her love for friendship, yet my skill shall be employed to make your favor last, and I will honor Constabarus still.
I bosom to thee, and will take thee in as friend, and grieve for thy complaint. But with do not expedition make. Thy loss of blood, I fear, will make thee faint.
And they exit, and Eric does a quick change to leap in to be the chorus to close the act.
To hear a tale with ears prejudicates, it spoils the judgment and corrupts the sense that human error given to every state is greater enemy to innocence. It makes us foolish, heady, rash, unjust. It makes us never try before we trust. It will confound the meaning, change the words, for it our sense of hearing much deceives. Besides, no time to judgment it affords to weigh the circumstance our ear receives. The ground of accidents it never tries, but makes us take for truth 10,000 lies. Our ears and hearts are apt to hold for good that we ourselves do most desire to be. And then we drown objections in the flood of partiality. 'Tis that we see that makes false rumors long with credit past. Though they like rumors must conclude at loss. The greatest part of us prejudicate with, wishing Herod's death do hold it true, that being once deluded doth not bate the credit to better likelihood due. Those few that wish it not, the multitude do carry headlong, so they doubts conclude. They not object the weak uncertain ground, whereon they built this tale of Herod's end, whereof the authors scarcely can be found, all because their wishes that way bend. They think not of the peril that ensueth if this should prove the contrary to truth. On this same doubt, on so light a breath, they pawn their lives and fortunes, for they all behave them as the mutes of Herod's death. They did of most undoubted credit call. But if their actions now do rightly hit, let them commend their fortune, not their wit.
And end Act 2. It's a fascinating fight. Scene. I love the way that it's like, I will fight you, and you're going, well, if it's for Salome, no, you'll have to give me a proper reason to fight. And it goes on for a while, and eventually calls him coward and goes, excellent, and just pulls out his massive sword. And I don't get the impression that Sileus is actually very good at fighting. It's like Scrappy Doo has turned up, and Constabarus is not even breaking a sweat when the fight actually takes place. I mean, that's a projection from my part, but there's something really interesting about going on there. But Constabarus, he's got so bitter. I mean, he's really been eaten away since that earlier scene where you get the impression that if Salome had gone in a different direction, he would go back to her and it might all be fine. But no, nothing here anymore. Constabarus has just gone to the dark side a bit there. There's all sorts of stuff going on here. Thoughts in the room, Lynn?
Yeah, but they end up buddies. I did not see that coming.
It's one of those tropes. Yeah, men hate each other until they fight, and then they're fine. It's not true, by the way.
Yeah, no. It's a little. In a way, it's disappointing because it's the whole bros before hoes thing, but it's just so unexpected. It certainly got my attention.
That said, I mean, how long Silius has left? I mean, he's lost a lot of blood by the way the dialogue goes, and he's in a bad way. So it may not, turn into a lasting friendship. I don't know how long he's got. Alan, then Eric.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've actually seen a fairly similar scene in one of the Turkish plays of effectively a duel that happens, that ends up with them being best buddies for however brief a time.
Yes, that does ring a bell. Yes. And then we all look at Eric to try and remember for us which one it was.
To have a young brain again.
I think we shouldn't declare until we're absolutely certain what the answer to that one is. Anyway, Eric, you were waving.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Solomon and Persida, but I don't know because I remember that my internet connection cut out during the second half of that, so it was like, oh my god, I want to know what happened. Anyway, yeah, yeah. There's I don't know. This scene is interesting because it's like, yeah, I don't like you, I don't like you, I don't like you. Insult me, come on, say something real, say something whatever, and then suddenly they're friends. But the chorus is just. I don't know, like usually we don't like choruses. I mean, we being you and me, Rob. But it's just sort of like filling in. It's sort of like doing what Homer did for the sort of age plays, where it kind of, well, maybe they're trusting someone too much for this kind of thing. Maybe they should think twice before they do whatever they're going to do. I don't know, it's just like really dropping the hints heavy on that one.
Yeah. I am, it is true, not generally a fan of choruses. I'm not generally a fan of this chorus, actually. It's though this particular one is fine. But I have issues with choruses. But you can disagree with me if you wish, if you love the chorus. But anyway, we have one more scene to do this session to cram in. It's quite important as we enter Act 3, because Herod's dead, and all's not right with the world. Enter Pheroras, his brother, and Salome, his sister. So we get some sibling chat now to find out how they're feeling about death of their brother.
Urge me no more, Graphina, for to forsake. Not 12 hours since I married her for love, and do you think a sister's power can make a resolute decree so soon remove?
Poor minds they are that honour not affects.
Who hunts for honor, happiness neglects.
You might have been both of felicity and honour too in equal measure seized.
It is not you can tell so well as I what 'tis can make me happy or displeased.
To match for neither beauty nor respects, one mean of birth, but yet of meaner mind, a woman full of natural defects. I wonder what your eye in her could find.
Mine eye found loveliness, mine ear found wit, to please the one, the other, and to enchant the other. Grace in her eye, mirth on her tongue doth sit. It looks a child, in wisdom's house a mother.
But say you thought her fair, as none thinks else. Knows not Pheroras, beauty is a blast, much like this flower which today excels, but longer than a day it will not last.
Her wit exceeds her beauty.
Wit may show the way to ill as well as good,
But wisdom is the porter of the head and bars all wicked words from issuing thence.
But of a porter better were you spared, if she against their entrance made defence.
But wherefore comes the sacred Ananell, that hitherward has his hasty steps doth bend? Great sacrificer, you are arrived well. Ill news from holy mouth I not attend.
For indeed here has entered the high priest Ananell.
My lips, my son, with peaceful tidings bless, shall utter honey unto your listening ear. The word of death comes not from priestly breast. I speak of life. In life there is no fear. And for the news I did the heavens salute, and filled the temple with my thankful voice. For though that morning may not be pollute, at pleading accidents, I may rejoice.
Is Herod then revived from certain death?
What? Can your news restore my brother's breath?
Both so and so. The king is safe and sound, and did such grace in royal Caesar meet, that he, with larger style than ever crowned, within this hour Jerusalem will greet. I did but come to tell you, and must back, to make preparatives for sacrifice. I knew his death your hearts like mine did rack, though to conceal it proved you wise.
Exit Ananell, having dropped the truth bomb.
How can my joy sufficiently appear?
A heavier tale did never pierce mine ear.
Now Salome of happiness may boast.
But now Pheroras is in danger most.
I shall enjoy the comfort of my life.
And I shall lose it, losing of my wife.
Joy, heart, for Constabarus shall be slain.
Grieved soul, Graphina shall from me be ta'en.
Smile cheeks, the fair Silleus shall be mine.
Weep eyes, I must with a child combine.
Well, brother, cease your moans. On one condition I'll undertake to win the king's consent. Graphina still shall be in your tuition, and her with you be ne'er the less content.
What's the condition? Let me quickly know that I as quickly may command your act. Were it to see what herbs in Orpheus grow, or that the lofty Tyrus might be sacked.
'Tis not so hard a task. It is no more, but tell the king that Constabarus hid the sons of Babus, done to death before, and 'tis no more than Constabarus did. And tell him more, that we for Herod's sake, not able to endure our brother's foe, did with a bill of our separation make, though loath from Constabarus else to go.
Believe this tale foretold. I'll go from hence, in Herod's ear the Hebrew to deface. And I, that never studied eloquence, do mean with eloquence this tale to grace.
And exit Pheroras.
This will be Constabarus' quick dispatch, which from my mouth would lesser credit find. Yet shall he not decease without a match, for Mariam shall not linger long behind. First, jealousy. If that avail not, fear shall be my minister to work her end. A common error moves not Herod's ear, which doth so firmly to his Mariam bend. She shall be charged with so horrid crime, as Herod's fear shall turn his love to hate. I'll make them swear that she desires to climb, and seeks to poison him for his estate. I scorn that she should live my birth upbraid, to call me base and hungry Edomite. With patient show her collar I betrayed, and watched the time to be revenged by slight. Now tongue of mine with scandal load her name, turn hers to fountains, Herod's eyes to flame. Yet first I will begin Pheroras' suit, that he my earnest business may effect, and I of Mariam will keep me mute, till first some other doth her name detect.
And enter the servant to Sileus.
Who's there? Silius man? How fares your lord, that your aspects do bear the badge of sorrow?
He hath the marks of Constabarus' sword, and for a while desires your sight to borrow.
Oh, my heavy curse the hateful sword pursued, my heavier curse on the more hateful arm that wounded my Sileus. But renew your tale again. Hath he no mortal harm?
No, sign of danger doth in him appear, nor are his wounds in place of peril seen. He bids you be assured you need not fear. He hopes to make you yet Arabia's queen.
Commend my heart to be Sileus' charge. Tell him my brother's sudden coming now will give my foot no room to walk at large. But I will see him yet ere night, I vow.
And exit. So, Herod's alive? alive. Yeah, it's and it's that thing of we've got the siblings sort of bickering a bit of Pheroras going, no, look, I've married her now. I don't care. It's fine. I don't care what Herod says. He's not alive. And then Ananell turns up, and suddenly we get this wonderful bit of Salome going, my brother's alive, isn't it great? And Pheroras going, my brother's alive. Bugger.
Oh, bugger. Yeah.
And Salome just goes, look, I've got a plan. It's fine. We'll sort it all out. I'll make sure he doesn't kill you for marrying the wrong person. If you could just arrange for my husband to die, that'll be really helpful. Lovely. And then immediately afterwards goes, okay, that's tick on the to-do list. Who's next? Mariam. Insulting me earlier was a big mistake. And yeah, Mariam's got it coming for being really, really horrible. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to Salome's credit, if you want to put it that way, she's not having her brother lie.
No, it's true.
He's a traitor.
Yeah, absolutely.
He has been harboring enemies of the state
for 12 years.
For 12 years. So the tale that Ferrara, whoever I am, Pheroras is about to take to his brother Herod is not a false one. It's the truth. Yeah. So who's in the wrong here?
And the way that Salome puts it, of course, and just make sure you know that I didn't want to separate. I had to separate myself from my husband. I did the separation thing, but only because I discovered he was a traitor, not because I don't love him anymore. I'm going to be really sad when you kill him. Really sad. I love Salome. I mean, I shouldn't. It's obviously a bit more complicated than that, but yeah. I think it has the wrong title. Anyway, Rachael.
There's so many just I was laughing at parts of this, even though it's like not a good turn of events for some people, just because of the way that the lines are phrased and the timing of it. Some of Salome's lines in this are just kind of funny, and it is a light-hearted moment for her, and it is like a little bit of clowning between siblings, which siblings do clown on each other. So even though it's very serious, she does throw some clown in there without having, enter the clowns. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just love the sort of banter between them when Pheroras is saying, I love this girl, and Salome's just going, oh really? I mean, her? I mean, and it's a real brother sister thing, isn't it? Just going, you could do better. And it's really, and it's not with malice. It's as such. It's just it's or anything excessive. There is humour to be had there. There's something playful between them. And then Ananell, and I think Ananell's got some sass to him as well. I love that, I knew his death, your heart's like-minded rack, though to conceal it proved you wise. I mean, it's just this idea. You were really sad, weren't you? But I didn't notice anyone crying. It's very, very, very wise not to do that publicly. So yeah, you can almost see him tapping Pheroras on the hand there, going, well done then for not looking sad. Other thoughts? Eric.
It's very much that thing of, oh, you were so brave. But sort of like, yeah, just obviously not really caring about what their reaction was. But yeah, the whole sort of Salome Pheroras thing is just, I know it's fascinating because like it makes me wonder whether they're sort of the same age, and obviously she can't have a say in his life. She has to wait for Herod to return in order for Pheroras to sort of do whatever he's going to do. Yeah.
Yes, they both lack agency to a degree. That Pheroras has only committed himself to this marriage just now. And we're getting a sense of a really tight time sequence as well. A few hours, it's something like 12 hours has passed since that scene earlier, and this, you get not quite the full unities, but it's a tight time turnover of time here between the rumor of Herod's death and his news of his arrival. He'll be coming back. Herod's not dead. And that throws everybody into a tailspin. So it's like news of his death throws everyone into the tailspin that is the beginning of the play, and then his return is it throws everyone again. So really clever there. Elizabeth.
I like the way Ananell just turns up in the narrative and just kind of goes, yeah, Herod's fine now, and he doesn't really explain in any great detail how Herod is fine now and what happened to make us all believe that he was dead in the first place. And then there isn't that much shock on the parts of the people he's telling, that's Pheroras and Salome, that their brother is actually alive. That you think that they'd be like, oh my God, he's alive. But they're just like, yeah, saw that coming. Oh, he happens to be fine.
Yeah.
And then...
Yeah, let's carry on, sorry.
I wonder, wouldn't they have seen the body before they started saying he was dead?
He was a long way away, to be fair. He'd been called back to Rome, so that's the body would either be disposed of or would take an awful long time to get back. So
yeah, true.
What I like about Ananell is he's just going, right, I've got all these priestly things to do now. It's really busy. And, Ananell is the high priest, so he's presumably the replacement of the dead brother of Mariam, who was elevated to the high priest as high priest and then murdered. So, there's, again, even Ananell is part of this intrigue and this court drama to a degree, even though we will never see him again. But he's quite nicely sketched for that. I mean, everyone seems to be quite nicely sketched, even characters who don't actually have a lot to say. There is just enough spin there to give an actor something to do. I really like that in a script. Rachael.
Yeah, to what kind of Elizabeth said, because I was like the people who believe Herod's dead and these other people who are questioning whether he isn't, how true this rumor is, I think that gives them some characterization and creates some of their relationship with Herod. Maybe their relationship to the court or even to how well they know Herod. Perhaps, I haven't read it, so maybe he shows up later on, but maybe there's some of this, faking on his part, or how truthful the court is and how experienced some of these people are. And maybe somebody like Mariam, who believes sincerely that he's dead, doesn't know him as well as she thinks she does. Well, Doris, who's been on his bad side, maybe knows a little more what he's capable of.
Okay. We are into final thoughts as we're well into extra time. Any final thoughts from around the room about staging this? It's had a reasonably good modern production history. Not on the main stages, you stupid people, but certainly on the fringes and in student productions and readings, there is at least one YouTube version that is of its age, but actually quite nicely done. And of course, we have our full cast audio adaptation coming soon. Final thoughts in the room. Now I'll go to Lynn first for final thoughts.
I just wanted to reiterate that I always really do enjoy, as Eric was observing, the interactions of the personal and the political. That's always fascinating to me. That's why I like history plays. The human desire and political obligation often come into tension, and that's just always interesting to me. And what makes this extra interesting is that the females, the women, are such important players, and they have this tension between the personal and the political. And we didn't mention this earlier, but like Doris is an example that Herod has wronged her personally in a very profound way, but she says, I'm going to bury the hatchet personally if my son gets to be king. So I just think that's a really interesting, just sort of example of how the personal and the political interact, that she's got a personal axe to grind, but she is going to put that aside if her political desires are met. So enjoying all.
Absolutely. Alan, any final thoughts?
I wonder whether part of the reason for a lack of a major production of this is the fact that, because certainly for the first act or so, it does almost seem to be a series of soliloquies rather than much dramatic interaction between the characters, which I suspect a modern audience might find a little tricky to maintain a level of interest in. Once we start getting into some of the bits where there is dialogue happening, and I particularly enjoyed that duel sequence because that was actually quite fast moving. And also, in fact, the other sequence that I did with the dialogue with Salome, where you do get the two actors playing off each other and you've got the ability to put a bit more characterization into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always that problem when you've got plays that on the page look scarier than they are. I mean, it's true the opening does have some long speeches. I mean, I would trim some of Alexandra's opening speech because some of it is really quite difficult to understand without some diagrams. But the idea is actually there in the it can be got into quite nicely. It also helps that it's not a very long play in terms of things. So with some cuts, it's a very manageable text. But that might be one of the reasons that I can think of many others, but I won't speculate on why people don't do things. Elizabeth, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that's been said so far. I love the fact that Cary, she gives us this really powerful female characters with a lot of agency, which I love. But then at the same time, I don't feel like she lessens the male characters at all at an expense of the female ones. I think the male characters are really, as you said, well sketched and really well drawn as well. And I think that the tension in the play is quite really well drawn out as well. So I'm excited for tomorrow or the next session and to see what happens.
Excellent. Rachael, any final thoughts?
Yeah, this is my first this is me meeting, I guess, the writing of Elizabeth Cary. Elizabeth Cary. I really like her. She's given us these characters are great. This plot so far is great, and the language is amazing. And I like how she's taken the Turkish play, where a lot of the times we've gotten a lot of blood and murder and killings. A lot of this sensational stuff from other writers using, this setting to do those things instead of bringing them to England. But here, I feel like she's using this setting of like a Turkish play for some real social critique, about gender, class, religion, and race. Even if the characters are saying stuff to each other, it says something about intersectionality or the lack thereof that is keeping these women separated and not uniting to form, a united power or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of the characters are flawed. It's almost like the play is equally opportunistic in the way that people have really bad thoughts and stuff going on inside them. As well as positive things. It's like everyone's got a reason for doing bad things. Salome has got a really profound reason for doing awful things. Constabarus is really interesting in the sense that, in theory, what he's doing is quite honourable, but we're looking at him going, well, some of what he's saying is and his point of view is really out of sync. And yet you can understand why he's in that situation, and therefore he is interesting. He's not just a cardboard cutout cipher doing things that we might object to, and they're all like that. I'm really liking that. It's giving us things to discuss. Eric, any final thoughts?
Well, I agree with pretty much what's been said, but I did like the line when Silius was first about to enter. That the most memorable line for me was just like, "Oh, look, I call him, and if I hadn't called him, he would have stayed. He would have not come," which made me think that, the actor playing Silius was, half falling asleep by that point, going like, "Silius, you wanted," kind of that. I don't know, just yeah. It's a tragedy in terms of like as a genre, not genre. How do you call it? It's titled as a tragedy, but there are so many comic moments in it that you could just sort of get that moment, sort of, I don't know, that bittersweetness, that humaneness in it as well.
Yeah, and I think you're right. There are moments of humour in it, even though it is a tragedy. There was somebody actually commenting online on Twitter the other day, saying, I just wish that there were a few more laughs in the Tragedy of Mariam. Okay, no, there are. There really are. Not big laughs. They're bitter, dark laughs. A lot of the time, but yeah, there's humour here. There is humour here. Anyway, we have one more session to complete the play. We will be returning with many of the people who are here now, many of them in the same parts. And we're going to find out what happens when Herod actually returns. So all that remains is to thank all the wonderful readers for doing some wonderful reading. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Bye.
Fare ill, my once beloved lord.